Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Backbone Podcast, where common sense still makes sense in a world that is sick and only getting sicker. And this was a story that was circulating all of yesterday, and everybody and their mama was talking about it. The bombshell tea that was poured by Miss Candice Owens. She is on the rampage, as most women are when they get emotionally involved. Candace Owens has a Israeli theory that her good buddy Charlie Kirk was pressured by a billionaire named Bill Ackman. These claims, of course, are denied. These blackmail claims are denied, of course, by Ackman, who wrote a lengthy, and I mean a voluminous, response on X right after Owens made these claims. Now, anybody who ever worked in any type of communications department like I did, and I worked at the highest level. I worked in the communications department of the biggest city in America. The longer your response, the more you explain, the more you complain. There's an old saying, never explain, never complain. That's the whole thing. Because the more you explain, the more you complain, it just goes to show that there is a bit of guilt there. If these claims were ridiculous, there's no basis in reality to them. Bill Ackman could have said, Candace Owens is nuts. I never did this. Give me some proof. Show me any receipts. There's got to be cameras around in this restaurant, whatever. Go ahead. I challenge you. I dare you to prove this. He didn't. He went on a whole diatribe like a woman, explaining in detail how him and Charlie are good friends and all this other bullshit. I'm not going to get into it because it was literally, it must have been 10 paragraphs. And what Elon should do is he needs to put a character, one of those character limits on there, because that was ridiculous. You don't even read the whole thing. And that's the point. That's how you know Ackman didn't write it. It was such a carefully written text or tweet, whatever you want to call it, that you could tell it was written by a team of lawyers. So, of course, it's bullshit. But Candace Owens has alleged that slain activist Charlie Clark was threatened during an intervention with billionaire Bill Ackman over his shifting stance on Israel. Quote, an intervention was staged by Bill Ackman because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. This is not the route it should be going on, and Charlie was surrounded by his friends. Bill Ackman was very upset, Owens said on her podcast on Twitter on Tuesday. Owens further alleged that Kirk, assassinated on September 10th at a Utah campus, had been contacted by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about this same issue. It was at this time, and I quote, it was at this time that Bibi, Netanyahu, was called and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, she said. When we see these politicians going to Israel, and they seem to all do it, they take pictures at the Wailing Wall. They take pictures at these Holocaust museums. They take pictures where they're wearing yarmulkes. It's ridiculous. First of all, if you're a Catholic, you should never wear any type of Jewish garb. Yarmulke, that shawl that they wear, nothing. Yeah, Judaism is not in any way an ally of Catholicism. I don't care what anybody says. It never has been, never will be. They hate us because we love Jesus. So for any politician to do this, and they all do it, so you basically wouldn't be voting for anybody, but you should think twice about voting for that person, because they've already accepted the money. And from what the conspiracy theory is that most politicians who go to Israel, like Trump and like any of these people, like Ted Cruz, and he's a lummox, that other moron who used to be senator of Florida, what's his name? He's the Secretary of State now, Rubio. they this is what I heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's said that in sometimes with these politicians, especially the ones that are kind of on the fence, they drug them and they get pictures of them when they are passed out with young boys, young girls, half naked in these compromising positions, and they blackmail them. Again, this is allegedly, this is mostly conspiracy theory, but would it surprise you? I mean, you remember The Godfather Part 2? How did they get that senator to turn his ways in favor of The Godfather? They drugged him. They killed a prostitute. His blood is all over the place. Her blood is all over the place. He's dead to rights. But Michael made it right because he followed orders. It isn't so crazy when you think about it. Owens quoted an unnamed individual as telling Kirk, and I quote, "We just need you to come to the Holocaust Museum and take a photo. We just need you to go to Israel," before Kirk had declined. So apparently Kirk was not into this. He was changing his ways. He was changing his thoughts, which I find hard to believe. If you're gonna stand up to these people, you got to do it when their money stops. You can't accept their money and then say, maybe you're doing too much in Gaza. Maybe you're too much involved. Maybe Jewish money is too much has too much involvement in American politics. But you can't keep taking their money. And according to a lot of people, Kirk was taking money hand over fist from these guys. Jewish donors, Bill Ackman, AIPAC. If Benjamin Netanyahu really spoke to this guy, really called him up, then he was deep in Jewish-Israeli affairs. Deep. And he was no friend of yours. He did nothing but support Jews in Israel. Backed them up to the hilt. And I even think he said that he would die for them. Oh, there you go. Owens continued by stating that the entrepreneur Seth Dillon attended the same meeting and shared screenshots of her messages seeking his response, which never came. The 36-year-old teased she would reveal more names if there was pressure on her. And I quote, "Seth, Bill Ackman, and other individuals who I have not yet named but will be next week were all present at the meeting, and Charlie was put under tremendous pressure. When Bibi Netanyahu called him, invited him to Israel." Rejecting Owens' allegations, Ackman made a lengthy post on X. He wrote, and this is I cut it down a lot, and I quote, "For the record, at no time have I ever threatened Charlie Kirk, Turning Point, or anyone associated with him. I have never blackmailed anyone, let alone Charlie Kirk. I have never offered Charlie or Turning Point any money in an attempt to influence Charlie's opinion on anything. In fact, my interactions with Charlie Kirk have been extremely cordial, albeit limited, regretfully so, as I was very impressed by him and his work, and I will sadly never see him again," end quote. He acknowledges that he had hosted Kirk and others, but denied it was an intervention, in quotes. Ackman goes on to say, and I quote, "It gave me considerable perspective on what was on the mind of young Americans. This is key here. The next thing I knew, he was gone," Ackman wrote. I told you, oh man, this has to have been about a month or two ago in Podcast Phil, that Gen Z and these, I don't know what these new generations called, Zoomers, and even a lot of millennials were turning their back on Israel. They were not in the same support system that the boomers are in. And this scared the shit out of Israel and Jews in America. Because if these people, this new generation, don't have the same cuckery for Israel that the boomers have, and it's old boomers. Once they're gone, once they're dead, and it won't come soon enough, once they're gone, you're going to see a big shift in Israeli policy. Because they can't buy everybody. They can't kill everybody. But young Americans in this country are not buying the whole Israel's our friend, Israel's our greatest ally in the Middle East. They're not buying it. Social media has changed the way the Jews in Israel are perceived. And that scares the shit out of these people. And there is a conspiracy theory that Kirk was one of these guys who was changing the minds of these young people away from Israel, right? Because guys like Trump and Biden and Obama and George Bush and all these other assholes, these boomers, they were totally in bed with Israel. The evangelicals, the Christian Zionists, are totally in bed with Israel because they feel like they have this whole, Jesus was a Jew, so we have to worship Israel and the Jews. That's absolutely ridiculous. Jesus was vesseled into this country by a Jewish woman, but he vesseled into this world by a Jewish woman, but he left this world a Catholic. He did not believe in the ways of the Pharisee at all. And that's why they killed him. I'm not comparing Charlie Kirk. I'm so used to calling him Charlie Cook because he cooked for Israel so much. Charlie Kirk in this Bombshell by Candice Owens may have been turning more and more than we initially thought. He was an evangelical, but it seems that he might have been turning to the real way, to Jesus's way, not just in Bible thumping scripture memorization. I'm talking about in faith. Now, the FBI has charged 22-year-old Tyler Robinson in connection with the assassination of Kirk. We all know now that the state of Utah is pushing for the death penalty. Now, here's Candice Owens. It's about 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It's pretty revealing. And it's pretty, I'll tell you, this bitch got balls to come out and say the things that she's saying. And she does have balls. I have to give it to her. Because most people wouldn't say these things. Fuentes says these things. Megan is on the, even Tucker Carlson, they're kind of, but the things she's saying, and she was friends with this guy, Charlie Kirk. So we don't know if he confided in her and said, hey, listen, these people are scaring me. These people threaten me. We don't know. But let's give old Candice her due. Make sure to pay attention. A Black woman speaking.
In the Hamptons, and he had more than one event, but he had essentially what was staged, an intervention was staged by Bill Ackman, because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. This is not the route that you should be going on. And Charlie was surrounded by his friends, his quote unquote friends. Bill Ackman was very upset, and threats were made. That is what I am told, and I will tell you that I am very happy for Bill Ackman to dispute this narrative. In fact, he was asked to dispute this narrative. Max Blumenthal went out to him today, and Bill Ackman came back and said, I have receipts I can show you. And he did not provide the receipts. This is not how it went down. I know it went down this way. I'm waiting for one of them to go on record and to say that it didn't go down this way. It was at this time that Bibi Netanyahu was called and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, I would say, because I've been in these situations before. When I started asking very sensible questions about Israel, as someone who had dedicated her political life to supporting Israel, many times alongside Charlie Kirk, I was met with the very same pressure. And just like Charlie was being invited to Israel, I was invited somewhere else. And when this arrived to me, it felt like a threat. I got to tell you that. It felt like a threat, like not like, hey, come here and we can educate you because you're my friend. More like, this is your last chance. That's how it felt to me. I can't speak to how it felt to Charlie. And I know that Charlie was offered a ton of money in this moment, a ton of money. Maybe would fund it, spend tons of money. And Turning Point, I guess, if it needed to go to a higher level, would have gone to an even higher level than it already was at. And I know for a fact that Charlie denied that funding. That Charlie denied, and what BB didn't include there, he declined to go to Israel for, I would describe this as like, re-education camp. We've seen it. You made an but we can help you. We just need you to come out to Auschwitz and take a picture. Yeah. We just need you to come to the Holocaust Museum and take a photo. We just need you to go to Israel and we can make this better. Charlie said no to BB. Okay. Bill Ackman, if you would like to dispute that, I would love to hear what you say happened, because our sources and what we have, it's solid. Okay. There were conversations that took place, messages that were sent at that time, and they are solid. So I decided, another person that was there, and I am not surprised this person was there. If you've been listening to my show, Seth Dillon. I was going to go out to Seth Dillon, and I decided to message him last night about this Hamptons meeting. And Seth Dillon, who is normally very quick with a response, has not yet been able to respond. I'll show you this text message chain. And I want to be clear, I am not someone who normally publicizes text messages. But my friend was shot in the neck. And I'm just not really in the state right now to be polite when it comes to the answers that I am demanding. Okay. This is me out to Seth Dillon last night. I sent him Bill Ackman's tweets because, he tweeted, I feel incredibly privileged to have spent a day and shared a meal with Charlie Kirk this summer. He was a giant of a man. I said, any comment on this one, Seth? He didn't answer last night. This morning I said, need a comment ASAP, please. He didn't answer. Then I followed that up and I said, trying again here, you were present when Ackman lost his mind on Charlie and when BB invited him to Israel and Charlie refused. Text messages immediately following this meeting are circulating. I find Ackman's statement, as though the meeting was somehow cordial, to be incredibly disturbing. Are you at all disturbed by that tweet? Do you feel, as I do, that this tweet significantly betrays the defined purpose and mood of his, and I presume your, final meeting with Charlie Kirk? ? He was unable to speak to me, but he did place some frantic calls to Turning Point USA. Yeah. You see, I went out to Seth, but I also went out to two other people who were at this meeting, and nobody is willing to go on record. They're all messaging each other, trying to figure out a coordinated response to say that, no, this was all quite cordial, but no one wants to go on record and describe it as cordial because they know someone's leaking, because someone's got a guilty conscience about what happened at the Hamptons. So I will again put it out there, Seth, Bill Ackman, and to the other individuals who I have not yet named, but who are going to be named later this week, who were at the Hamptons when Charlie was put under pressure, when Bibi Netanyahu called him and invited him to Israel, again, in a move that, when it happened to me, and it wasn't Bibi Netanyahu, felt to me like a laced threat. I am inviting you guys, I will give you my platform, actually, to come clear matters up, to tell us what really happened, because, I think Charlie was definitely on the brink of changing some of his perspectives. And I can tell you factually, Charlie was praying the rosary. Charlie was going to mass. One of my last conversations with Charlie was me joking with him saying, just make the last step. Okay. You are, I said specifically, you're too smart to be a Protestant. Just take the last step, Charlie. He says, ha ha. You're speaking about Mary. And typically when those steps start taking place, you stop referring to yourself, as I did, as a Judeo-Christian. Again, it is
Holy moly. The term, I would never refer to this country as a Judeo-Christian country. That's a boomer invention. That's something you'll hear Bill O'Reilly or Victor Davis Hanson or Glenn Beck, one of these old fools, refer to this country as. This country has always been Christian. Now, it wasn't Catholic. It was mostly the English took over, and it was more Anglican and Presbyterian, Protestant, I should say. But the offshoots of those crazy broken branches of Catholicism just went insane. And Charlie was a evangelical, which they're like I said, they're morons. They're crazy. It's interesting that Candice went this way. Was Kirk praying the rosary? Was he talking about Mary a lot? Could he have considered going Catholic? I don't know. I mean, does it really matter? No, not really. It doesn't matter now. But did these things scare people? We did a podcast again about a month ago of the conversions to Catholicism have skyrocketed around the world, skyrocketed, and they're continuing. Western youth are moving away from Israeli Jewish support because they don't believe these people are in our best interest. It's shocking in a way, but it's not shocking because deep down inside, people know what's going on. We all know who the bad guy in this whole thing is. Now, did Charlie Kirk have this type of influence on the youth of America that would scare these people to the point where they would whack him out in broad daylight? I can't wrap my head around that. I don't think the youth saw this guy as, I hate to say it, as Catholic enough, because he wasn't Catholic. He was milquetoast. He was weak. And yes, was he starting to turn a little bit on the whole Gaza-Israel thing? Yeah, but it was too late by then. And he looked very timid and very weak and very foolish when he just refused to debate Fuentes. That made him out to be kind of a bitch boy. So we're going to take Candice at her word. Excuse me. Bill Ackman, Benjamin Netanyahu, these people are not, I don't know Bill Ackman. I just heard his name recently, but these people just don't seem to be, they're not the type of person that you want to turn your back on if they have a knife in their hand. Put it to you that way. They're shady and they're shisty, just like most of them. Not all, but far enough. Now, the other question that begs is Owens next? Does Candice have to look over her shoulder? She might have to. This woman has young children. She goes out to take them to the park. Who knows what could happen? And not just by some Mossad agent or by some crazy, tranny psychopath who wants to kill her. These people are all under attack now. And the only way to combat this is to go on the offense, not stay on the passive defense. We're going to pray. We're going to light candles. We're going to talk. We're going to use dialogue to win our argument. No, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It worked for Gandhi. It worked for Gandhi. But the British Empire was already in shambles. They were weakened terribly in World War I. The last hurrah was in World War II. They were finished after that. The United States would not allow them to continue to be an empire. And Gandhi won the hearts and minds of people around the world. In Britain, the people hated the British just like people hate the Jews today, or Israel. I think Candice has too much light on her right now for anything to happen to her. And if these Israelis are involved in this, now they're not the sharpest knives in the drawer. People always make them out to be these smart people. They're not. But if they were smart, they would lay low with her. Don't go after her. Just ignore her. She's talking nonsense. That's the way you have to approach this. If you give her the light of day, she shines. And then people start to listen. And then people come to their own conclusions, and they don't like you anyway. So you play the stoic victim. I'm going to ignore you. You're not worth my time. You're crazy. And then this will go away. But if you fight it, if you kill her, everything she's saying now is legit. Never, ever, ever allow your enemy to become legitimate, because even if they're wrong, even if they're lying, if you engage with them, you give them power. You give them legitimacy. There's a reasonable doubt that they're telling the truth, and you never want to do that. The Israelis don't want to do that. The Israelis should hire me to be their public relations, to be on their communication public relations team. I'll fix everything. I'll cure this whole thing. All right, there's my 2 cents. Thank you again for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Be careful out there, my friends. Satan is busy, 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 busy. Be a man, have a backbone, because masculinity and common sense are worth standing up for. And just remember, if it ends in an ism, it's a mental disorder. We'll see you later.